Hey guys, last year I was blessed to have the privilege to meet one of my childhood heroes, former heavyweight champion of the world, Pinklon Thomas. And I'm proud to say that we became friends, and I've called him on several occasions for advice, and he's given me some rock solid advice. The Bible says we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. You're about to see living proof of this. Listen carefully as Pinklon tells you his amazing story that at the age of 13 he was shooting heroin, and by the age of 26 he was world champion. And just as amazing as his story is, even more amazing is the man of God he became. The things he tells you he did through his life, but then to meet this man, and he's a humble man of God. You would think, being a world champion, he'd be all cocky and thinking he was all that, conceited. This guy is just a soft-spoken, humble man of God, the nicest guy you ever want to meet. Just a nice, likable guy. But you know, being a man and talking with other men, you know when you're in the room with a tough guy. He don't have to be all cocky. He just got that quiet confidence. And I've seen him hit the bag. The guy's in his mid-60s, and you do not want to get hit by this guy. I would venture to say he's the toughest guy in that room that we were in. And there were some tough guys in there. I wasn't with a bunch of wimps interviewing them. And so just to kind of set it up, he won the championship against Tim Witherspoon in 1984. And then 1985, he defended it against a former champ, Mike Weaver. I mean, these are like the top dogs back then. And then he lost in 86, a close decision against Trevor Berbick. So he's making his comeback. 3 fights, just knocks the guys out. Bam, bam, bam. And then they give him a fight against the new champ, this young kid called Mike Tyson. Pink breaks his shoulder in training, but like the warrior he is, he don't make excuses. He goes to the fight. And that's where the story begins. So enjoy. We got some boxing questions I want to ask him. Like, I seen that fight with Mike Tyson, and I think you were winning until your glove got ripped. And what's your personal opinion? If your glove didn't rip, because if I'm not mistaken, that's the only time in your career, the only time you've ever been knocked down. Is that correct? I think that's the only time you ever. You weren't knocked out, but you weren't knocked out, but you were knocked down. And I think you got right back up. I don't know why they stopped it, but they stopped it. But in your opinion, if your glove didn't rip, would you have beat Mike Tyson? I think you would have.
Well, you know, you're about the only one who really come up and talk about it like that. You know? Because, you know, everybody was a Mike Tyson guru, you know. And but, you know, that was the real deal of the fight, you know, that really costed me the fight was the glove splitting. And it wasn't even so much of the glove splitting, it was the time and the duration that it took for them to get another glove. And that costed about 10 minutes.
Yeah, so he had 10 minutes to recover, 10 minutes and you had the momentum up to that point.
Yeah, I had the momentum, and then, of course, you know, once they got the glove, they finally threw it on me, and boom, the bell rang, and I just go back out. Where I was covering myself, and I had a right broken shoulder, you know, it was, you know, it popped out. I got hit about 18 unanswered punches, went down, and by the time about count of eight, I was up. And the purpose of that was because I wasn't going to be going down like everybody. I wasn't going to lay down and be counted out.
No, you were tough,
so, but I just knew that, you know, if that hadn't happened, I think that my left jab, and I was, you know, really controlling the fight at the end of the 5th round. And I told him at the end of the 5th, I told him that, you know, boy, your butt is out. The end of the 6th round, say your butt is out, you know, and
nice.
I figured another 2 or 3 rounds, and I would have had him. But you know, that's another story. Mike, you know, Mike's a good kid now. I like Mike. You know, he's had his day, and you know, he's having his day now, coming back, doing his own thing, and I'm happy for him.
He's a likable guy. He's a likable guy from what I don't know him personally, but just seeing him on TV, he makes me laugh.
Mike's a good kid.
He makes me laugh.
I call him a kid. I don't know why. You know, I always call somebody younger than me a kid, but you know, he came up a little bit after me.
He was coming up.
He's a knucklehead, you know, and so I got, you know, these kind of memories of him, you know, but I respect him.
That's awesome. So, well, I had read your book, From the Edge of Hell. Is that the name of it?
Back from the Edge of Hell.
Back from the Edge of Hell. And it struck me, you were very young when you got into drugs. How old were you when you first experienced heroin?
Oh, my God. You know, I grew up, my old man used to drink liquor. I would sip out of his drink the end of the liquor that was on his dresser in his old hickory, get drunk. My mama smoked, sell them cigarettes. I smoked the cigarettes. You know, I just got, you know, thank God they don't do that no more. You know, I mean, you know, no cigarette, all that stuff is gone. But I just got caught up. I experienced everything it was to experience, and hung out with the older crowd because I was big, and you know, I'm just, you know, the example that I follow, you know, I wouldn't tell nobody to do. You know, I did some crazy things to do the things that I done, and it's just only through the grace of God. I get so humbled. Sometimes I choke up. I lose it, you know, because only through the grace of God, through all the trials and tribulations and the things that I've done, you know, I've made, through his mercy, that I'm here today, you know. So, yeah, you know, from the bottom to the top, you know, you read my book, I know everybody know my story, you know, all the things I've done, you know, drugs, snorting, shooting, contracts, you know, on the run, you know, to find a boxing 2.5 years later, having 3 amateur fights, went 1 and 2, all of them in the Golden Gloves. 6 months later, turning pro. First year I fought 10 fights, I was 10-0, 10 knockouts. You know, went through a couple of years of contractual disputes. You know, couldn't fight, and then within 2.5 years later, I was world champion. You know,
amazing. That's amazing.
I mean, like I always say, it ain't what you do, is how you do it and how bad you want it. And that's what I did. I wanted it so bad because I had never finished nothing in my life. I would always stop. I would quit something, but I was talented. I run track. I played football. You know, I mean, and I was good at all of them. Matter of fact, when I got ready to start boxing, and that was my bottom. When I say bottom, my bottom, that's when I knew God had. God came to me. It was just, he come to me. It was like, one day I woke up, I had lost my home. I was staying in the projects in West Seattle, and I told a Spanish guy that I used to fight. I was 15-0, 15 knockouts. I never fought nobody in my life. I was shooting dope. I was shooting dope and I was selling dope, you know. And I told him, and he came back a couple of days later and told me about a boxing gym, you know. I said, for real, you know, and I jumped in my car and went down there, and I had the kite, you know, talking to the guy, you know, I'm almost 9, talking to him what I wanted to do. And anyway, told him the story, told me to hit the bag, and we went through it all, and, you know, the rest is history, man, you know. But God told me, right, that particular day, I didn't have no other choice. Was in that period of time, It's in NAAA. I'm 32 years clean today of drugs and
Praise the
alcohol
Lord.
and stuff. Where it's something called the fourth step, inventory step. And I ain't know nothing about inventory. And that's when I did my inventory. And I said, wow. I was 19. I hadn't graduated. I was on drugs. I left on the run. I left Michigan, and I was doing the same thing in Seattle now. And I ain't had nowhere else to go, nothing to do. And I thought about all my talents. I said, I run track. I said, but there's no money in track. I said, I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball. I thought about the Sonics. I thought about the Mariners. I thought about the Seahawks. I said, but the college draft is going to beat me out. Be like the third world citizen. They're going to look at me and they're going to laugh. But then I had found boxing. And I said, boxing, I didn't have to have a degree. I just had to have talent. I needed a teacher, someone who could teach me. And that's all I needed to do was learn. And my heart was big as the world because I did some crazy things. And I know when I was on the run, and them guys, they knew that if racketeers in my town who end up being involved me years later knew that I was gonna be, if I couldn't do nothing but be a champion because they knew my heart. Mm-hmm. And I gave them, I got into boxing, and I had a guy who seen me lose my first fight. He had his daughter and his son there. His name was Roland Jacobson out of Washington State. And I think a year before that, he invested in the Portland Trail Blazers. He was a minority stockholder. And he's big and wanted to keep his money in sports, and seeing me fight and wanted to invest in me. And from that point on, he took me up under his wing, and I would sit down. We would go at a hotel called the Golden Lion, and we would sit down and we would talk, and I would tell him everything I wanted to do. I'd tell him my story, what all I had been through. And he embraced me. I never shared this part of the story, and this guy, we kind of broke off on not on a good note, but I love him, man. I love his family. I love the way he guided me and took me to a point that then he couldn't take me no more. And I moved on. I had to do what I had to do.
Right, sure. That's awesome.
But I'm grateful, and then as I say, man, moving in leaps and bounds like Superman, putting the S on your chest, man, and just having to go full speed ahead. Only one who guided me was the grace of God. I didn't know. He guided me when I didn't know. Of course, we don't know when he's guiding us. We don't know when he's driving us. We don't know when he's moving in full force and effect, And we just be doing it. We be going and we be in awe. We be in space. We be in fear. We be in turmoil, Been to the bottom and been to the top, crawling through the dirt, sand, and dining with kings and queens in another country.
Wow.
But only through the grace of God, man.
Grace of God.
That He brought me back through it all.
That's powerful.
And it's just